So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
Isn't that beautiful that that brings us to spirit? Brings us right to spirit. And you know that the spirit tone opens by saying the divine being must be reflected by man. That's not a moral must, that's a divine must, a scientific must, based on the science of the first tone of mind. That if you avail yourself of the rule, the divine being, well, it is reflected by man. It must be reflected by man. This is what you are. You are the availing of the rule. And that's how our openness is going to grow, how we will grow more and more open, more and more complex, growing to greater and greater degrees of understanding the divine by reflection. Autocatalysis is reflection. So if we look at the epitome of spirit, the spirit tone as a whole, it is the prayer of reflecting the divine being through the culturing of spiritual qualities. That brings us into unity with the unfoldment of spirit. And so to my present sense, the self-organizing principle at this point becomes the ordering principle, or the reflection principle, the principle of complexity, the principle of spiritual autocatalysis. This is the prayer of reflecting the divine then. It is also the prayer of true worship, true devotion. The second subject is that which says, take the vision of the first subject into your spiritual heart and love it. Take it with love and affection and worship. And this is the process, the substance of that spiritual autocatalysis. It's the first instance that we get of reflection in the textbook. It's that very first touch for us where we see that a system of consciousness can reflect the divine, that first touch of the divine nature gives us everything that we need to be able to reflect the divine. Spirit reflects only its own nature. This second subject is filled with those aspects that are autocatalytic, those qualities within us that are autocatalytic. So we are presented with that which is autocatalytic and that which is not spiritually autocatalytic, namely that which is going to lead us to greater and greater degrees of openness, and that which will lead in the other direction toward being closed, that which is on the course and that which needs to be corrected along the way of that course. The means of reflection, in other words, we get that which is divinely autocatalytic as the means of reflection, and their opposite. Let's just quickly go over them generally. What is that which is divinely autocatalytic? These are the spiritual qualities. Absolute consecration of thought, energy, and desire. This is autocatalytic. Availing ourselves of the blessings we have. Expressing gratitude for the good already received. Patience, meekness, love, and good deeds are autocatalytic. Following the Master's commandments is autocatalytic. Remembering our blessings, reflecting upon the blessings already received, being grateful for the blessings already received, fervently desiring growth in grace, following our Master's example, gratitude for all he has done, expressing loyal and heartfelt gratitude. The habitual struggle to be always good is autocatalytic. To be grateful for life, truth, and love has the power to cause us to grow, reflecting and reflecting on the divine being. Longing to be better and holier through expressing daily watchfulness. A heart that is near truth and love is autocatalytic, the demonstration of the divine nature, letting patience bring experience, striving to assimilate more of the divine character is autocatalytic. Silent prayer, watchfulness, and devout obedience, veritable devotion, remembering our blessings. Did I say that? That's it. Now let's see what does not have the power of autocatalysis. Ready? Trying to give information to the infinite mind is not autocatalytic. Pleading for unmerited pardon, pleading for a liberal outpouring of benefactions, returning thanks but being ungrateful for life, truth, and love, being insincere, hypocritical, a heart that is far from divine truth and love, the ingratitude of a barren life, spiritually barren life, outward worship, insincerity, the superficial, you see the superficiality, only the appearance, admitting God only theoretically to be good, material and verbal prayers, outward worship alone, a mere acknowledgement of our blessings in audible words, just saying thank you, saying thanks, a verbal expression only, simply asking, audible prayer only, long prayers, superstition, creeds, and whatever materializes worship. These are not divinely or spiritually autocatalytic. All of that in one tone. Can you imagine? Isn't that rich? So let us take spirit as mind. Let's take our main tone epitome again. That the prayer of reflecting the divine being through culturing spiritual qualities brings us into unity with the unfoldment of spirit. Through which spiritual qualities can this reflection be brought forth? So spirit as mind, that reflection is brought forth through absolute consecration of thought, energy, and desire. That is what is necessary. So she says the divine being must be reflected by man. What do you hear when you hear divine being? I immediately hear divine science, right? The divine principle, love, the cybernetic principle, must be reflected by man, else man is not the image and likeness of the patient, tender, and true, the one, altogether lovely. What a gorgeous description. Really a description from the human standpoint, from the standpoint of approach, how we perceive, how we see that divine being when we are of the one mind, when we have begun to put on the one mind. We begin to see that that divine being is the patient, the tender, the true, the one altogether lovely. It's like a coincidence, a description of the divine cybernetic principle from the standpoint of Christian Science, with a lot of love in it, a lot of spirit and love. But to understand God, so you see that the issue of understanding begins to come in. To understand this divine cybernetic principle is the work of eternity. So the divine self-understanding itself is eternal, and so too is our understanding of the divine. It will have an eternal, an eternality about it, that we will never come to the end of understanding God, understanding that divine being. Again, you hear the term work. It is the work of eternity. What is it that is eternally working? It's the calculus. It's the work of eternity and demands absolute consecration of thought, energy, and desire. And so what we have seen in mind, this is of the nature of spirit. It is the substance of spirit, and so it is autocatalytic in nature within us, which means that the divine nature is already within you and is constantly producing more of itself. And so it will go, so it will be. That divine nature, even when the system of consciousness has evolved to its equifinality, that work of understanding God, that conscious scientific understanding of being, will have no time in it. It is the work of eternity. But as long as we are working out an evolution, then we need those qualities which reflect the divine being, and that's the absolute consecration of thought, energy, and desire. So Spirit as Mind says, don't disperse your energy. Do you know what that energy is? It's the flow of mind. A fluctuation is a flow of energy, an influx of energy. The influence of mind now that has broken in on us, Spirit says, don't disperse that. focus it, concentrate it, consecrate it. If you consecrate it, you hallow it. To consecrate is to hallow, to set it apart. To consecrate something is to set it apart for God, toward God, only for God. You know, when the instruments for the temple were consecrated, it meant that they underwent a spiritual devoting of them to God only, and that they could not be used for any other purpose. So that's what Spirit says. Take your vision of mind, your rule of mind, and direct it only toward the divine being. You can see why we put so much stress on the method of pondering. Pondering, taking what you have and going over it. And going over it and over it. This is autocatalytic. This is the activity within consciousness that gives birth, that brings forth. Adoring what you have, focusing on what you have, loving it, not just hearing it and then forgetting about it. Hearing it and saying, oh yes, I know I heard that, and I heard something and it was very good, and I loved it when I heard it. But to go within and to activate that, to focus on it, reflect it, to recall it again, is all belonging to that process of spiritual autocatalysis within us that gives birth. And to give birth means to grow spiritually, to become what we are as our spiritual identity. So remember that energy is what a dynamic system takes in and gives off, exchanges with its environment. A dynamic, open system takes energy in and gives energy off. So a fluctuation is an input of energy. That's so beautiful, isn't it? To consecrate the energy of mind, what we've been given, our thought, our desire. You see all that mental or that mind quality within us now. Spirit says to consecrate that. That process is the cybernetic within us. That catalyzing process is the cybernetic within us, that we take the input, the vision that we have, the point of the word, so to say, a word aspect, and we process that. That's the Christ. And there's an output from that. That output is more of the input. And we input that more and process that. You see, we input the output. How do we do that? Through the feedback. So you have the whole process there. And that's how something grows spiritually. So it's the law of spiritual birth and spiritual unfoldment.